On a spring day in March, at around 6 a.m. Pacific time, I was the first member of the public on Earth to die in this game. I'm dead.
You really?
Yep.
Who's dead?
Me.
Oh, here we go.
After several months of anticipation, speculation, teasers, and intrigue, I finally got my hands on a pre-alpha build of Gray Zone Warfare. And not just me.
Look at all these content creators doing reloads, man.
You have to, bro, and then you have to angle the sun proper.
Look at the sky.
But this playtest wasn't about just showing off the game to build hype. The detail, the mechanics, what worked and what didn't, I'm going to be breaking it down all very clearly for you. And if you take nothing else away from this video, take away this. The problems that we experienced, or rather the way the devs responded to these problems, the way that they led this test in general as a whole, brought me a deeper respect and trust in them than I had ever had before. This may be one of the most anticipated tactical shooter games in the world right now. So, did it live up to the hype? Let's talk about that. But first, a very important message. A titan has been growing for the last 5 years, and there comes a moment when one must decide whether to sit idle on the sidelines of history or to seize destiny and become legend. That's right, today's video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends, the dynamic player versus environment role-playing mobile experience. Available to play right now for free. The game is celebrating its 5th anniversary and is constantly getting better and better. Now is a better time than ever to delve in. The battlefields of Teleria are evolving with over 800 unique champions to choose from, the new rarity of mythical champions. With their ability to metamorph between forms, bring versatility and options for adaptation on the fly, clear stages every month in the new Cursed City to unlock them, and much more. The story, environments, and threats of the game's world are ever-changing. Use the QR code currently on screen or the links in the description to play right now for free and get this cool in-game loot with champion Lady Atessa worth $100. This is literally the only time Raid has done this. You can also take advantage of the promo code Festival5, and if you want, join my clan in the game itself. Whether playing casually to level up your champions or rising to the ranks in live PvP, Raid is waiting. Download now. If you are new to this game, don't worry, I'll explain many of the core mechanics and their purpose as we go through the video. But characterizing these developers, Madfinger Games, who they are, how they work, is just as important for you all to understand, which is why I'm going to be putting it all out front. See, the devs invited who they invited to this test because we were all creators who deeply care about the tactical shooter genre, and by proxy, they knew that we would have things to say. MFG were clear, they did not want cheerleaders here, they did not want yes men. They urged us, give feedback, and be honest. So we did. The first thing that I think many of us noticed, besides that, yes, this game is real, is that it is very beautiful. When MFG claimed that they were attempting to push Unreal Engine 5 to its limit, they meant it. And so the second thing that most of us noticed was the performance. I'll break it down in more detail momentarily, but long story short, most of us with anything less than a NASA supercomputer struggled for frames. I averaged around 40 to 60 FPS while recording, some creators averaged 70 to 90, and some dropped as low as the 20s and teens. There was one creator who actually couldn't launch the game at all throughout the entire test, and that brings us to why I'm talking about this stuff right off the start, because the way the devs responded to this feedback showed, as usual, that they are not screwing around. The creator who had the biggest issue with performance, as in he never was able to launch the game, seemed to be suffering from a somewhat known Unreal 5 issue with AMD GPUs. So the devs took his specs, as well as those of other creators who suffered what I'd call unplayably poor performance, and began building their exact PCs in-house at the MFG studio in the Czech Republic. They began troubleshooting and stress testing these new known problems immediately on these very builds. Look at this however you want, but I've never heard of a dev doing something like that. Showing not just that they were listening to feedback, but that they were willing to act upon it instantly. And this is the way that MFG treated the test throughout the whole weekend. The sessions were guided at first, but then we just went off on our own, and the devs would drop in constantly asking what we liked, what we didn't like. Wherever there was a major opinion on something, when most creators voiced a certain concern collectively, applicable teams from MFG began working on those issues like that day. The reason that I started with this subject is the experience that I had will not be like the one that we experienced with an early access release. Many of the problems I personally had with the game will not be present when you all get your hands on it, and may already have been fixed by the time that this video comes out. I voiced all of my major concerns directly to the devs, and I'm largely going to omit them here because, well, until we play the early access build, they kind of don't really matter, because the issues that I had were technical. The core of the game we've been seeing in trailers, the game I expected and looked forward to, it was there. What I will do here is describe and show to you the feel that I got from it, because that's what I think really matters and what I think you all should want to know about. The good, the bad, the environment, the PvE, the PvP. Well, actually, that's the one thing that I can't show you, because some armor values and elements weren't finished in the build we played. I won't be showing you the PvP footage that I recorded today. You will see it eventually. What I will say is this: the very, very small amount of PvP that we did play was the most fun that I had that weekend, and added an entirely new and very exciting, I think, feel to the game. Okay, so on that subject of feel, let's talk about the guns right off the rip. Aiming, shooting, put simply, I thought it felt great, especially considering that we were playing an outdated pre-alpha build. The weapons we played with had clearly received a lot of love. Animations were tight and purposeful. I could keybind everything exactly how I liked it. The aiming felt intuitive. The recoil felt very good in my opinion. Realistically clunky yet easy to control. Everyone complained that the gun sounds felt too quiet at best and pretty weak and muted at worst. But again, devs are hyper aware of this and already working on it. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, but apparently after receiving several comments about audio in the game, the audio team came straight into the office to completely begin redoing a bunch of stuff, like, again, that day. But I digress. The deeply simulated ballistic system that we've seen some demos of was clearly in effect. During one of my matches, a round bounced off of a teammate's helmet at a tight angle and hit another teammate in the chest, barely missing his heart. When you were lucky enough to have tracers, you could see rounds bouncing willy-nilly all over the place. 5.56 rounds felt terrible. Unless you were firing hollow points, they were quite ineffective at dropping a target. 7.62 by 39 soft points clearly hit way harder, dropping most AI with 1 or 2 hits to the chest at most. Apparently these pre-alpha servers that we were playing on had no lag compensation whatsoever. It's likely that a real shippable build of the game will feel quite intuitive, because when you did line up a shot, especially at long range, popping heads felt pretty darn good. That's one other little nitpick that I want to talk about. There was no ability to hold your breath or steady aim momentarily in this build, which we were promised would be promptly added, as every single creator that I played with mentioned it. Most of my difficulty aiming long range came from this, so with that functionality, it will be night and day from what I played. And engaging long range is definitely the right move, because these AI are no joke. Essentially, each of the 3 teams, or PMC factions, starts in a forward operating base. These are positioned across the map from each other. The first town nearest each fob is the onboarding area, so-called. I noticed each of the 3 onboarding towns is actually identical in layout, thus no PMC team will have a drastically different starter town experience. In these towns, you'll find the basic bandit AI, starter quests, etc. The enemies here, these bandits, will be the easiest difficulty level of any AI in the game, and they're pretty dumb by design. But even then, they were deadly. This is a little post-edit edition. After IGN revealed their raw footage recently, I noticed a lot of people saying that the AI looked way too easy. Trust me, this is the devs playing here and they know what they're doing. Many of us content creators got squad wiped repeatedly, even just entering the first intersection of the town. These guys are seriously no joke, much harder than your average low-level AI, and again, these are the easiest level of AI in the game. It became sort of a challenge to many of us, trying to complete the one story mission that we had without dying as a solo. I believe that Clean was officially the first to do it, but it took him hours of attempts over multiple days to finally get back to base alive with both quest objectives. The AI behavior was interesting. Their pathing wasn't perfect. Mara, the CEO, actually does a lot of the AI programming himself and stated repeatedly that they were constantly being reworked, but they would clearly act more passive the farther away they were from you and get more tricky and aggressive when you got up in their faces. There was actually one really interesting instance where the AI yelled at me to go away, and I did, and because of that, they held their ground and never aggressively pushed me. I then, of course, snuck back and took them out from afar. They have this emotion system, so-called. When they know they've hurt a player, they get super aggressive, and it was very noticeable. Okay, I'm dead too. Long story short, you want to try and not get shot in this game. Aggressive W key gameplay will 100% get you killed in my experience, and yeah, playing solo is super, super hard. Bring blood bags and a lot of them. So yeah, the medical system, it's actually unlike anything that I've ever played. There were aspects of it that I felt needed a bit more info to be intuitive, but overall I really enjoyed it. If you got hit, you backed off, checked your health screen, identified the exact spot that you were hit, and what type of injury you sustained. If you had bruising, it meant that your plates took the hit. Besides some temporary pain, you were essentially fine. I'm okay. I actually didn't. My armor caught all 3 of those bullets that I just got hit by. Because there's no HP in this game, just blood, your organs, and the effects that injuries have on each part of your body. That's an aspect that I really did not grasp until I played with it myself. Healing in this game is much more like doing first aid in real life. You're not replenishing health per se. Being shot will cause a bleed. If you lose 50% of your blood, you go into a coma from which you can die or be resuscitated. But if a vital organ is destroyed, you die instantly. The point I want to make is that a lot of people are looking at this health system as if blood equals HP, but that isn't how it feels at all. It is really something new. Wounds and injuries create status effects like coughing, dizziness, etc., but don't inherently kill you. It's really a lot more like War Thunder's damage system for the human body.
All right, what do I have? Treated medium wound, so that and dry mouth. So
Yeah, that's the worst part.
it's a tough day.
There was no ability to permanently lose a part of your body from what I saw, and you only needed to use the field surgery kits when you had damage to your internal organs, like if you caught a bullet in your lung. Long story short, it was actually more intuitive than it sounds, and easy to understand with a couple hours of playtime for someone who's played, say, Tarkov, but it was totally different from Tarkov's health system at the same time. It was both quite realistic feeling and also very gamified, which I think is exactly what MFG were shooting for. Taking care of your body was a constant worry during the playtest. I learned very quickly which first aid items I needed to bring with me, how much, as well as food and drink. That last one became a bit of a meme. For some reason, the food and drink drained at ludicrous speed during this demo, which DevilDog Gamer, who works for MFG, assured me was not the case in later builds that he'd played personally. Which is good, because as much as I loved watching these MRE animations, you would need to be eating constantly if you were to actually traverse this map based on the build that we played. I'm going to be posting this video of me free roaming around the map with no commentary after this one, and I hope that it helps put into perspective how much walking you will be doing in this game if you want to fully explore. That might sound like a diss, it's not meant to be, because once you get out of the little starter town, this map is seriously gorgeous and very immersive. And big. So I can't show you the full in-game overview map because spoilers, I guess, but the area that we had access to is something like a tenth, maybe less, of the total size of the map. At the speed that you walk/run in the game, I'd wager it'd take you a solid half hour to cross the map completely in a straight line. Over an hour if you actually had to, play the game during that time, eating, drinking, watching out for enemies, etc. The movement speed to me felt perfect, not too fast, not too slow. There was a button to take your speed down to super slow, like Ready or Not, which any tactical shooter needs. Little aside, I'd personally love if you could scroll between speeds, but that's just me. The sprint felt realistically not super fast. I had nitpicky issues which I gave to MFG, but overall the movement felt exactly how I think it should be for this kind of game. Being able to vault fences, windows, and ledges made traversing the urban areas super intuitive as well. Navigation in-game was both easy and complex. The build that we played had no squad system enabled, so I can't speak to that functionality, but you had this TAC map that you could pull up, and every member of the PMC faction's location was tracked on there, including the helos. It was pointed out to me that these are all marked with their correct respective NATO symbology, by the way, which I think is a great detail, and it makes me very hopeful that down the line we could mark things on this map, even placing NATO symbols to designate what it is that we're marking. I didn't like the idea of the on-screen compass at first, but it really did aid with ease of target designation when communicating with your squad.
285, long distance.
All right, one sec.
At that build, I cannot see him.
anything.
I don't have my EOTech. He was walking left to right.
285. Oh no, I do see him. I do see him.
You see him?
Yep. Dead. Got him.
Nice.
Personally, I could take this or leave it. It makes the game easier for sure, but having a physical compass we have to use would be very cool in my opinion. Being able to get your bearings is definitely a necessity in this game though, even with the minimap. Until players know this map like the back of their hands, it's not easy to tell exactly where you're going, and you can lose track of your buddies or get turned around almost instantly. Until I literally memorized the location of the quest items for our little mission, I got lost constantly, which often got me killed eventually or forced me to just RTB and resupply. The game did not hold your hand. Had the devs literally never taken us to the quest locations, it would have taken me hours upon hours to find these buildings, which I think is sort of the point, but my feedback was this. Personally, I think that they should, 1, either make the locations a bit clearer in-game, or 2, give you a visual hint in the quest description to help you find these spots. Giving people a reason to actually explore is always better than simply forcing them to look up a YouTube guide. This little town itself, though, it was infinitely complex. Another creator would have to chime in on this, but in my experience, there wasn't a single building in the entire game that wasn't fully explorable. Every building I entered had working doors, windows, diverse enough layouts that they didn't look copy-pasted, and everything felt like it had a bit of character to it. While the loot pool was reduced to basically nothing in this demo, there was loot everywhere, mostly candy bars, sodas and gauze, hats and backpacks, but I could see where they could really add much more variety. The center of the town had this big market. It was a central danger zone in the area, and there was a mini boss on the top floor, a guy with a nicer AK and military clothing. Supposedly, he had a key on him that unlocked a safe room somewhere in the market, although I never personally found it. I also found a locked doctor's office in another part of the map, and I'm sure that there's more stuff that I missed. Exploring the map and just taking in the atmosphere was my second favorite thing about being able to playtest Gray Zone Warfare. My favorite part was, as I said before, the little taste that I got of the PvP. Let's PvP.
All right, where are you?
Okay. there's your PvP. Yeah, that doesn't count. No, we played an honest-to-God squad versus squad PvP match. The goal was to fight over this center market. After a day of playing this town over and over, trying to master the PvE, the PvP gameplay was a shot of adrenaline that I really didn't see coming. It was a very familiar feeling. Is that you? Where? Next to the wall with the long-range scope. Yes, that's me. Don't shoot. Bandaging right now? No, that's not me. Shoot, shoot, shoot. It was extremely chaotic, very fast-paced, not physically, but in everyone's tone and decision-making. We only got to do that one little instance, but I instantly wish that we had more chance to do it again. The thing about the PvP that we experienced, though, this was like two 4-man teams purposefully bearing down on one another, going for PvP on purpose. In an average PvEVP server, I doubt that it'll be much like that. Based on the size of the map, I'm guessing that most players starting out won't run into much PvP at all, at least in those starter towns. We will need to see how they handle anti-griefing at first, before including all of the planned faction karma mechanics that are coming down the line, or whatever they decide to call them. But unless you literally walk across the entire map to go straight into an enemy team's fob, you're likely going to run into PvP when you least expect it, just traversing the map, rounding a random corner in a town, or deep in the heart of the jungle. At least from my experience, because of the pace of the game, because of the complexity of the map, actually hunting down PvP will require a lot of patience and will be quite difficult to do, I think. And of course, remember, if fighting other players isn't your thing, the PvP disabled servers are planned to be available from the get-go. So, with all this into consideration, what do I think of the game? Or at least the taste that I got of it? If I could put it into one word, it'd be this: promising. As I mentioned before, most of the issues that we creators raised to the devs during this test were essentially nitpicks. We need this keybind, we need to be able to lean like this, we need this to be toggleable, the food drains too fast, the reticle is too dark, that kind of thing. As I said before, the core of the game was there. All the issues that I and other creators had were with aspects of the game that come dead last in the dev cycle. Polished things like sounds and UI elements, keybinds, and of course, performance, which the devs have stated is their primary concern going forward. The thing is, those above ground elements, gun and footstep sounds, ambient audio, UI elements, etc., they're the first things that people notice. But like I said, they come last in the dev cycle. MFG have spent years building the bones of the game, and now they can hopefully move on to polishing those top of the pyramid features that people really notice right off the bat. And that's the problem that I foresee from the community. This game is going places, and I really hope people have the intelligence to understand that if we want this game to be what it can be, we need to be patient, and we also need to judge the game against itself, rather than using it as some mirror upon which to project our own assumptions. I wasn't really gonna talk about this, but people's brains work through pattern recognition, and until you've played a game for yourself, it is easier to think along the lines of things that you do know. After we'd played a bit, the devs were interested in what games we felt GZW shared the most with. Almost everyone said the closest was probably Stalker. Ghost Recon Wildlands came up repeatedly, and many people felt tinges of Far Cry, DayZ, and of course Arma in there. Not once did I hear someone compare the core gameplay to Escape from Tarkov. I hope that we can begin to finally put that comparison to rest. This game shares almost nothing with Tarkov's core feel or gameplay loop. This isn't, of course, to say that a person who likes Tarkov inherently wouldn't like GZW. Hell, I'm playing it, and Tarkov is probably my favorite shooter game ever. But yeah, that whole weird camp of people saying things like, this will kill Tarkov, this will be Tarkov but better. No, it really isn't like that, like even a little bit. I've played it, and I'm telling you that now. This is another little aside post-IGN raw footage reveal. I want to add a tiny bit onto what niche I think this game feels like it might fit into. One of the reasons that I never got into games like Ground Branch or Ready or Not super heavily was, though they're great games for their own reasons, they don't offer a ton of exploratory freedom. The nature of Escape from Tarkov as an extraction shooter means that you go in, loot and fight, and get out. It's very tied into that adrenaline rush. Games like DayZ were, for me, almost too freeform, since there's literally no point to the game, you simply make your own way in the world. For me personally, I have a hard time wanting to sink that time in to really learn all there is to learn. Stalker is a game that I haven't played, much to my own embarrassment, mostly because the sci-fi elements, while intriguing to me thematically, don't really get me super excited gameplay-wise. I'm a sucker for grounded real-world settings, unfortunately. You might be gathering from everything that I just said as to why I am so personally interested in this game. The goal the devs have for it is basically my dream game, a slow-paced, tactical, and realistic shooter with a cerebral, intelligent, and realistically grounded story and missions set in a persistent open world with gamified survival mechanics. A game where the combat is intense, but the quiet moments in nature are just as important. So yeah, that's the vibe that I got from it, to put it concisely as I can. Or I could just say, it's Ready or Not / Far Cry / Ghost Recon / Stalker in the jungle. That works too. All jokes aside though, people need to view GZW as its own game, and to also listen to the developers and their goals for it. At no point has an MFG dev claimed that GZW would be the most complex, polished, perfect game ever. Never have they claimed to want to overtake any other game in the genre, and yet these are the expectations that people are for some reason putting on it. People are constantly placing unbelievable expectations on this game, and I think that it's unhealthy, unrealistic, and sets people up for disappointment, and none of that is the developer's fault. I really hope that people don't just hear a gun sound they don't like and go, this game is bad, because I used to be like that, and then I found out what developing a video game is actually like. Because this is not some asset flip, this is not a mod, this is not adding flashy tweaks to something that already existed. This is a whole-ass game developed from the ground up. They built entire simulation engines themselves. They made all these assets by hand themselves. They wrote this AI and designed these animations themselves. They don't have hundreds of millions of dollars of AAA publisher funding. They haven't had 9 years to iterate upon this. This might seem like I'm walking back all the prior excitement I had for the game and its groundbreaking features. That's not the point. I just want audiences to be realistic. Game dev is not magic. In order to make something new and innovative, you must let the artists and engineers take their time to get it right. These guys, from my point of view, are some of the most hardworking indie developers that I've ever come across. Their workaholism borders on unhealthy. I'm looking at you, Adam. Get some sleep, seriously. The point I'm trying to make here is we need to give these devs the time and space to cook here, because they've proven to me time and time again that they can and will and are. That is not something that you can often say in this game's niche. Rewatching all my footage, I'm struck repeatedly by the unconscious response that I have to it, that I just want to get back out there into that map, because I touched the littlest slice of this game, and from what I've heard from people on the inside, the rest of the map is where things get really interesting. As I always say, being skeptical is fine, and I actually support and encourage organized excitement about games. And while yes, I'm eager to try a more updated, polished version, we really need to put trust in MFG to give us that when it's truly ready, and not a day before. Thanks for watching. Another little last-minute unscripted edition. I wasn't going to do this, but I thought I'd ask you all how you feel about it. I played with Tomographic, TactiGamer, Aculite, and Veritas during this playtest, as well as, of course, the devs. Gameplay commentary videos aren't usually my thing, but I thought I'd ask if there was interest in seeing some of that footage. What I thought I might do is make a little bit more of an unscripted reaction from me about the gameplay and my experience with it, and then maybe after that throw in some of the squad games that I played. I don't know if any of you all are interested in seeing something like that. Let me know in the comments and I I will throw it together for you guys. Do go check out the other videos that I will be posting right after this one, a bunch of no commentary footage of the game to simply give you a raw look at the game with as little outside distraction as possible. I used to always wish that there was more footage like this of a game that I was interested in that hadn't come out yet, and now that I have a platform, I can actually just do that. Of course, subscribe if you're interested in seeing more from me. As always, the support that you all have shown me recently is immense, and I appreciate it more than you guys know. If you did make it all the way to this part of the video, leave a like for the algorithm and a comment with the word cool or the sunglasses emoji guy to let me know. That's it from me. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.